All right, kia ora everybody. Welcome to Dock Edge School's screening of We Believe in Dinosaurs. We're very lucky to have the filmmakers Clayton Brown and Monica Longross coming to provide a Q&A afterwards. It should be very interesting. All of these topics are very controversial. When you have issues such as civics and what our money as taxpayers is spent on, but also throw into that politics and religion, you've got quite a strong foundation for a robust conversation. So if you're interested in coming for that conversation, you're welcome to, but we're likely to talk amongst ourselves to start off. But if you have any questions, save them up and type them in the chat. Or if you really want to speak on camera, you can put your hand up like this to speak. I imagine that my camera has just turned off because we're having a little connection issue there. However, would especially like to thank the filmmakers who are coming to us live from the States. So yeah, we're making that digital leap, and this has been an interesting moment for us here at Dock Edge, where we took our live theatre program and made it online. So Alicia, I don't know if your video, if your camera is on, but feel free to jump in and just have a couple of words about the movie and what you're looking forward to showing.
Yep. Oh, there you are.
Oh, I'm back.
I had you cut out for a little bit there.
Yeah, as everyone can see, we're managing this new world of Wi-Fi connections and inclusivity in this new digital house that we've created, and yeah, we're still shifting the furniture around a little bit. So without further ado, we are looking forward to showing you We Believe in Dinosaurs, and there is infrequent strong language, strong opinions about religion, strong opinions about politics, and you'll see the conflict. But this is all good groundwork to start having these conversations about how we move forward into a society where our money is spent correctly and our values are placed well for everyone. Would love to thank the Ray Foundation, who make the whole Dock Edge Schools program possible, as well as everyone at Dock Edge, including Alicia Adar, who is the schools coordinator, has been working tirelessly in the background to make this all possible too. Okay, so what we will do is we will find the page, which is We Believe in Dinosaurs, on our website. There it went. Just disappeared on me. We Believe in Dinosaurs, and I'll post that in the chat. So up the top, if you get all of your students ready, then click that link up the top. Then hover your cursor underneath the title on the pink Play Now button, and in 3, 2, 1, we push play now. All right, kia ora everybody. Welcome back. Hey, what a great movie. Congratulations. This is Clayton Brown and Monica Longross. Is that right? Have I got all of that right?
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Monica, I think you might still be on mute. So if you can click that little blue icon, perhaps, you might still be on mute. If Monica, you can pull your jack out. It's all okay. Try plugging it in. This is the joy. This is the new world under COVID. So, so just as a little bit of a backgrounder, we're very privileged to have Monica and Clayton here from the US. You're coming to us from the US, are you, Clayton?
Right. I'm in Michigan, which is just across the Great Lake from Chicago, which is where I'm actually living, but I'm spending time out here in rural Michigan in some isolation. So that's very lovely outside right now.
Excellent. It does feel like it's it does feel like it's the
Um,
time to get away from it all in the States, from what I can see.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yes, first let me say thank you to the Ray Foundation. Appreciate Doc Hedge, but yes, very much appreciate all of the work uh, that you, Clayton, and Monica and Amy have done to, really tackle quite a taboo subject, and but one that it speaks to the fact that the less that we try to untangle the difficult issues, the more they build up and create bigger problems for us. So yeah, kudos to you and the team for really really getting in amongst it here, because there are a few issues. There's the taxpayer issue of taxpayers contributing to something they don't necessarily believe in, the discriminatory hiring practices, and the actual indoctrination and propounding this religious point of view as science. So what do you think among those is probably the most pressing problematic thing from your perspective?
I think Monica and I probably agree on this. The most urgent issue for us in the film is America's relationship with science, and in some ways we're unique in the world where we have not only religious institutions, some religious institutions, certainly not all, but as well as politicians and cultural factors, all wanting to hijack science for their own ends. A few decades ago in this country, science was science, and it stood for itself, and people believed in science, and it was not something that could be argued one way or the other. But in our first film, The Atom Smashers, which was about high energy particle physics, we talked to an author. This was back in 2003, and he said, sooner or later we'll have Democrat science and Republican science, and everyone's going to have their own version of the facts. And that's, of course, exactly what has happened. And in this case, here's a very religious organization who has created their own alternate universe and claims it can be scientifically proven. And that's really troubling because, as you saw in the statistic at the end of the film, 40% of Americans believe that God created humans in their present form less than 10,000 years ago. So that's a real blow to science and scientists and science education that we think is the most pressing of these pressing issues in the film.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, we can hear you. Awesome.
yeah.
I would add that the erosion of the separation of church and state became quite obvious to us while we were making this, and that we didn't set out to convert anyone to, or to debate. We treated them with dignity and respect, and asked them questions about what they believe. But more and more, we came to the conclusion that our policy and our principle of the separation of church and state in our country is eroding and needs to be respected. And we need to talk about that in ways that we can further that wall that we used to have between religion in the classroom, for instance, and out of the biology classes. So I would add that's a big thing for us to question our politicians about when we're voting.
Especially because that's one of the founding principles that our young nation, was based on and built on. The separation of church and state is a critical issue, and that's being challenged and eroded, and yeah, it is a serious issue. It's got a lot of implications.
Yeah, certainly that would have been my next um, lead in there, because the sciences are, of course, very, very important. But from an external point of view here in New Zealand, we can really see um, the importance of religion to political figures in the States in garnering votes. So that 40% is not an insignificant chunk. And to appeal to um, this section who have strong faith, it if you're actually coming into conflict with the reality of the situation, then eventually your economy is going to start being built on that. And we could see how important, the idea was this languishing um, area needed an economic boost, and it looked like the Ark was going to do it. And if it had worked, I mean, what then? As the political figures are empowered, and we see, oh yes, putting catering to that large section of the population who are faith based, then that stimulates the economy, then everything's good. But we're living well under a mistruth. Yeah, it seems like a dangerous slippery slope, for at
Yeah,
least from an external point of view.
yes, it is. When we toured, we did this southern tour, and we went to a small town in Kentucky. I don't think you were there at that time, Clayton, for that one, but well, the mayor was there at the screening, and one of the citizens of the town asked the mayor, "Would you have done that? Would you given tax breaks if the Ark had come here?" And another citizen spoke up and said, "Well, of course we would. We need, economic stimulation here, so of course we would." And the mayor said, "No, well, we'd have to talk about this." And it gave me, this thing. And I thought, well, see, that's the thing. Small town Kentucky, they're hurting. And so if somebody offers this big boost, the problem is not only separation of church and state, and they have to think about that we're a country that is as about as mixed as you could get. And we have Buddhists and Hindus and Muslims and Jews, and it's a difference between freedom of religion and religious freedom and religious privilege. Because if you privilege one against for all the others, think of all the kids who have sung Christmas carols in public schools for their whole childhood, and they were not Christians. So that again, that's part of that slippery slope. So to put public money into it is to deny some citizens their right to say, no, I don't want my money put into that. So, but this small town was saying, well, maybe we would,
It really is, pun intended or not intended, a devil's bargain, because what the town of Williamstown conceded was striking. I mean, they gave away so much, and with the expectation that so much would be coming in. They have these plans in place for 30 years. And so they can't really even reap the benefits in some ways until 30 years from now, because they were led to believe that so much economic benefit was coming that sort of long-term sacrifice would ultimately pay off. And of course, that's not the case. But if you remember Jamie Baker, the development director of the town, I can't remember what her name is or what her title was, but she said, I don't care about the age of the dinosaurs. I don't care about whatever they say the Earth is. These people, we want them in our stores, we want them in our shops, and we need to capitalize on that. So she had this very pragmatic view, but at the same time, it still embraces this very controversial stance of let's treat this blatantly religious organization as a simple tourist attraction. And that's where it gets really thorny.
Alicia, our school's coordinator, Alicia, here has also seen the film, and she's also got some experience with religiosity. Um, you don't necessarily have to speak to that, Alicia, but if you have any questions for Clayton and Monica, I'm sure they'd love to hear.
Yeah, oh well, yeah, I think I found the film really interesting because in New Zealand, I think we often look at what's happening in America and think, how can we relate things in the world to us, and like, what do we want for our country? So I found that really interesting as someone who at a time was incredibly religious, but also someone whose family is deeply into tourism. So yeah, I was just like, whoa. But I think, yeah, I think as a filmmaker, because Matt and I are both into filmmaking as well, I was quite interested to know how you approached having so many different opinions and beliefs, like people with so many different opinions and beliefs. Like, how do you, if you don't feel impartial about the subject, how do you make the subjects feel like you're not being, biased?
You want me to go, Monica, or you want to start?
A lot of people ask us about access and how we got access. And one of the assumptions that in the beginning we made ourselves, would anyone talk to us? And what we discovered was that Answers in Genesis, who are the funding organization for the Ark and the Creation Museum, are very tech savvy. They're very media savvy. They do PR, and they have commercials, and they have billboards. And as Ken Ham says, he wants billions of people to come to the Ark. And therefore, it isn't a closed place. It isn't a place where people don't want to talk about it. So first and foremost, when we asked, they said yes. And we came in and we did. And some of those interviews we did were at media days. And so we were there with The Guardian and with the New York Times and, other organizations that were asking questions along with us. And so that's the first thing, is that they're very proud of what they believe. And we went with a great deal of curiosity, and we didn't go in there to debate or mock anyone. As I said, we went in there saying, tell us what you believe. Why do you believe this? Doug, who is the very talented artist who's in the film, and a very sincere believer, and he says, I know I'm not going to convert you when you go out the door. I mean, the kind of questions we asked illustrated what we believe, and we asked them and they answered, and we worried about it at times, because we kept telling them that we do science, and to us science is a certain thing. So Ken Ham said things, if you saw that at the end of the credit, like we were coming in and everything. But from the very beginning, we were forthright in our questions, and we were respectful. And we told at least the Williamstown people who were concerned, we told them we're telling the story of the building of the Ark, and we're getting the voices from all sides. Those who believe, those who don't, those who are against, those who are for. We're showing the whole story here, and that's what we're doing. So, and then we don't do a narrator. We don't do the voice of God telling you what to believe or what not to believe.
That would be awkward, wouldn't it?
Yes, then we obviously have a bias. They have a bias, and that's how they pose this whole thing, is our bias and your bias are equal things. So we sort of fit right in. But we also let Kentucky voices talk about the story in Kentucky. And that's one main thing we did. We at first did scientists from all over the United States, and we decided, no, this is an area of the world, and let's let Kentuckians talk to each other and tell us what's going on there. So that's a very distinct way that we dealt with this. So
Cool. I'm going to throw it open to the audience. I can see that there's been a little bit of tech trouble at their end too. So, and there's a little bit of a delay. So if you're a teacher and you have questions from your students, please type them into your chat box, and we'll get to them. But I, yeah, it's really it's disconcerting to see the fake, it seems to all tie in together, this the political, the science, and the religion, and the whole fake news. Like you were talking about equal bias, is that this documentary would be dismissed as fake news by them, I suppose, because it presents more of a science point of view, and the voices of where, gave up on being religious. Did you have to sign any contract, or was there an understanding that you would show a final cut to Ken Ham and the Genesis crowd before release, or nothing like that?
No, we never make that kind of contract with anyone that we interview for a documentary. And by the time we finished the documentary, they were not particularly friendly to us at that point. We're still on good terms with Doug, and he's asked to see the film. I've made it available to him, and then he kind of chickens out. He doesn't really want to see himself on the screen. He hates, as we all do, he hates the sound of his voice. And so anyway, he's got an open invitation to see it, but he hasn't seen it yet. But no, we didn't sign a contract with them in any way. We got releases from them, as you know, as documentary filmmakers, you need to do, so that they gave us their permission to appear in our film, and we were really grateful for that. And as part of, I think, a contract with that is that we believe it's our job then to present them honestly and to represent them honestly and truthfully, so that they will see themselves and say, "Yep, that's me. That's what I said. I'm not being distorted." So we take that responsibility very seriously.
And I can tell you that the people that we had the most difficulty with, I would say, were the scientists, because
Really?
yes, scientists, especially Natural History Museum, we went to a couple of them, and their executive director was afraid of funding, afraid of insulting members of the community, so they didn't want, and so they would make these, they're the ones who put conditions on. They can talk about anything, but they can't mention creationism. They can't talk about any problems they've had in the community. They can't say that we have to train docents specifically to deal with the creationists who come into our museum. Can't say that. They gave us this whole list of things. So they were difficult. And then David, who's the former creationist, he was very protective of his family and of himself. And so he put conditions on it quite naturally when we went through, and we respected that. If someone says to us, "You can never have my wife on, you can never have my kids, or you can never have this or that," we don't need any contract for that. We say, okay. And so we might try to talk them out of it, but we would not disrespect that in any way. So individuals put it on us, some organizations put it on us, but it wasn't ever contractual, of course.
And another aspect of the scientists that was frustrating for us, you heard Dan Phelps, the geologist, say, "I'm frustrated. I wish more people would help me fight this." But it's true. Scientists are so extremely worried about criticizing religion, or to be seen as criticizing religion, that they kind of run the other way in some ways. And specifically with the Creation Museum, the museum Monica's talking about was just 20 miles away from the Creation Museum. It was a legitimate science museum called the Cincinnati Museum Center, and they interact, behind the scenes with them all the time, and it drives them crazy. But as Monica said, the director of the museum said, some of our funders also fund the Creation Museum. So we can't say anything because we might lose some funding. Also, if we do say something, they will fire up their base, and we've got a PR nightmare to deal with. And so it's easier for us to just say, hands off. And when we decided to interview those scientists anyway, and we would get closer and closer to that edge, and you could just see them saying, I'm sorry, I can't go there. And they wanted to, as people and as scientists, they really wanted to, but they couldn't. And that really surprised us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're getting close to time, but I'm wondering what advice, like we have uh, a, a school system here where we have a number of particularly Catholic schools and so on, but they're very focused on social justice as well. So there is a level of religious education here in New Zealand. What would be your advice to young people who are learning about God and religion through the Christian tradition, but have their own suspicions, or have their want to investigate science more? Is there a way that you can blend spirituality? Is there a way that you can integrate real world issues and social justice and science as well? Like what would be your advice to balance some of these competing issues in an educational environment?
One thing I want to say is that shout out to the Catholics, because the Pope has said that there is no reason that Catholics cannot accept the theory of evolution and be faithful to the Bible and to themselves. And so if you have Catholic schools, there should be at one of our board members is a Catholic and is at Notre Dame. We have a couple Catholics on our board. And went to Notre Dame and said absolutely had no problem with science. And so this is a pretty small group. It's growing because the evangelical fundamentalist movement is growing around the world. So there, I spoke at a faith-based college in I guess it was in Kentucky. I'm not sure where it was. We went all over. And some of the students asked that kind of thing. And I said, we've made a film about science and the pressures on science. You guys ask religious questions, which I think you need to discuss in your homes and in your churches and among yourself is it necessary for you to believe in a literal Bible? And the Genesis whole thing is your discussion to have and yours to think about, because we're not saying anyone doesn't have the right to their faith and to their religion, and that might be very important to you as students and as human beings. But the question is, when you belong to a faith that is, for instance, this is a group that also does not believe in global warming and humankind's involvement in that. And you've got to ask, who wins in a war on science, first of all? And second of all, when the water's rising and you have some islands around you and the water is rising, and this is a sign for you to say, well, that doesn't matter because God will take care of it, is not a social justice issue. It is not taking care of the people And if you were given dominion over the plants and animals and all things, you have a responsibility to take care of that. So I think it's up to individual students like David to think about this and come to some kind of accommodation with their faith, and know that a great many of the world's religions have already come to the accommodation with their faith. There is a lot of mainstream religion would say there's no reason that this has to be going like this, that there is no reason that you have to throw away the Bible, throw away your faith, and then accept science. That isn't how it works. And so, but we have made a film about the pressures on science of religion. And those kinds of religious questions really have to come from them and in the churches and in the families, especially when the effects of climate change, which is going to become a major social justice issue, is happening and in those young people's lives. So yeah, that's
And the waters are rising, and we might actually need an ark.
yes, yes.
But as Chris Caldwell, the Baptist minister in the film, said, he freely embraces science, and he freely believes that God created the universe, and science informs how he believes that happens. So they're not mutually exclusive, and I think that's the important thing to remember. They're not mutually exclusive, and religion shouldn't require you to invent a new science in order to support it.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's a great way to wrap it up just before 12 o'clock New Zealand time, and I'm very appreciative of you guys taking time out of your schedule. I know it's probably getting a little bit later there, but yeah, from all of us here at Dockage Schools at the Dockage Documentary Film Festival, we want to say thank you very much, not only for your attendance here, but for a great film and a great starting point for some very important discussions, so we can really start to unravel and actually try to work together to focus on our immediate needs.
Great. Well, thanks for having us, and we hope you enjoyed the film.
Great. Okay, we'll catch you soon.
you.
Catch you for the next session.
Okay.
Right.
Bye.
Okay.
Okay. See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.